Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast. This week I have my good friend Christine from over the pond joining me. She owns a company called Life with Passion, Facebook group and everything else that goes with it. And is just an amazing human being who always brings a smile to my face. And we always seem to make each other connect and, push each other and everything else with it. So I thought I would get her kind spirit on, and hopefully she can spread some of the love. And I think one thing I've noticed about Christine is unbelievable work ethic, really goes the extra mile for her clients, and I kind of just thought it'd be a good idea to have a chat. I know the podcast is very property specific, but over the last few weeks we've been having various people on from marketing, brand development, business, and I think ultimately getting into property as a business at the end of the day. And I think a lot of core principles in every business relate to a property business. So welcome, Christine, and thank you very, very much for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Ryan. I'm honored.
I know the honor's all mine, trust me. So where should we start? What are we up to at the minute? Or let's start with your story. So kind of your story into entrepreneurism. What made you do it? How hard did you find it? What struggles did you have? Because I think a lot of my listeners are in that phase of starting their new journey, getting into their business venture, and maybe sort of running it as a side hustle at the minute, possibly around another job, and then really just looking for that kickstart.
Yeah. Well, joking, not joking, my plan was to study at Oxford and marry a man from England, and that didn't happen. So I got half of that. I studied at Oxford. I did not meet a man. So I came back to the States, and I always knew that I wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I really didn't feel like I had the path. And I think this is because I believe that most of us are trained to be really, really good employees from the time we enter school, unless we had some really kind of non-traditional background. From the minute we become students, we're taught to be okay when a teacher tells us we're okay, right? And then if we go to university, when a professor tells us we're okay, we got the A, we got the grade, we got the marks, we got the things, we got the degree. And then it's when we get a job and a boss tells us we're okay. We rely on our CV to get us promotions, our work ethic to get us like whatever it is. And so for those of us that doesn't work for, and I was one of them, it's like a conflict. It's that cognitive dissonance, right? But we don't know how to do something we haven't been taught to do, And for a lot of us, we're so scared, and I was so scared to just try things, because I knew how to play the game of being a really good student and being a really good employee. And that felt safe to me. And I am a high achiever. And so I got the grades, I got the scholarships, I got everything. And I was like, well, but this doesn't give me the life that I want, right? I don't want someone else telling me what to do. Probably the same reason all of us are doing this. We want freedom to do what we want. Like, you're so amazing at this, Ryan. You're like, I'll get up in the morning, I'll do my work, and then I'll do whatever the heck I want for the rest of the day. Like, that's so inspiring, right? And so I wanted that, but I didn't know how. So I started an online marketing agency on the side of my first job. I became a university professor when I was 23. It was never my plan, but it was an opportunity. And so I took it, and I started like basically the exact same time. In 2005, I started my business when I started my job. It took me 5 years to work my way out of my job, not because I wasn't capable, but because I was so scared. And so when I finally quit, I replaced my take-home income in the very first month. And I was like, why didn't I do this sooner? Why did I slave away in this job that I hated, in this toxic environment? But there it is. I did it. I finally did it. I was like, okay, this is great. That was like, I was good at it. I never had to market my online marketing agency. I was booked out. It was fine. It's my first 6-figure business. But I knew there was another level for me. Again, I was scared. This is such a theme. Like, how many of us are dealing like with fear on an everyday basis? And it wasn't until I went through the tragic loss of my first daughter, who was stillborn at full term, in almost exactly 6 years ago, that I took a look at my life and I said, like, the worst thing that I could ever fear happening has happened.
Yeah.
And so if that's happened, I literally starting another business, that's not scary anymore, right? It was a total perspective change for me. And it was also kind of a driver because I wanted to make something positive out of this terrible thing that had happened, right? So I hired my first coach to help me. What I thought at the time was to improve my online marketing business. And what came out of that was pulling my zone of genius that I had already been doing out of my business and starting a new one, which is Life with Passion. And it was scary and exciting, and it still is. But 5.5 years later, I'm helping people all over the world, and I feel like I found my life's work, and I love it. And I get to meet people like you, so thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, the fear of ripping the security away prevents probably so many people that are capable from never doing it at all. And I see this all the time when we're speaking to potential clients who want to, come on board, or they want a bit of help, or even just in the Facebook groups, you can see by some of the questions they're asking, they're so fearful of taking the plunge. And unfortunately, the definition of an entrepreneur is someone who takes financial risk for financial gain. And if you want to be that person, you're going to have to take some risks. And it is, and then you come on to the second point, which is, when do you leave the security of the job? And everyone's like, when I get to this, or when I replace my income, or whatever. But I think once I've kind of changed my perception on this. I think if you've got something that's working, even if it's at a low level, lower than your income, and you're doing that as a side hustle, then if you went full time at that, you're gonna earn more than your income quite quickly. You said you did it in the first month. It's you're putting an extra 5 days a week into that business, and and you build. This is how the property game works as well. People do it on a weekend to start off with, or they do it on a night after work, and they get. I acquired loads of properties before I made the full-time leap. So I was doing that on the side. And then I went full-time, and it just exploded because I have so much time to then make the business more efficient, work with people, track the business, treat it like a business rather than a hobby. And that's a key point as well. And taking that security away obviously does give you a bit more drive as well,
That's such a good point, because like people are like, oh, I need this much money in the bank or whatever. For me, I needed to have to make it work. Like, my husband and I, we had like combined student loan debt of our combined incomes. And we had 2 houses because it was the middle of the housing crisis here. And when I quit, and it was like, oh no, there is no safety net. Like, Christine has to make this work. What was that like for you? I'm curious, Ryan, with you and your wife. Like, was she scared for you to make the leap?
Yeah. I think anyone is. I mean, even now, I've started investing over in Dubai, which is another country, repeating the same model that I've done, here. And even now, everyone's like, are you sure? Be careful, and you're like, I think I know what I'm doing, like, not in an arrogant way, just like, okay, I've tried and tested it. I know I've got enough cash flow to support it if it doesn't work. It's not like I'm risking the house on this, and it's a calculated decision. And I've done the analysis that I've done so well here, and it's worked. So yes, it's a different country, but all you had to do was be on the Airbnb marathon the other week on Clubhouse and listen to all the experts across the world that are making it work. It's not just working in the UK. It works in every state in the US. It works in Australia. It works in Japan. There was all sorts of people speaking from all over the world, and they all echoed the same thing. They were repeating the same model, putting a different spin on it, and making it work. And so I think, fortunately for me, I am probably a bit selfish. So people might tell me things, and I might acknowledge that I've listened, but really I'm going to do what I want to do anyway. Yeah. So I would always, I don't really let people influence my decisions in that regard. And that has allowed me to push on. Don't get me wrong. At times it has probably got me in trouble a bit, but I think that sort of mindset is something that you need at times to push on, especially when close friends and family and people will have this all the time, will be trying to hold you back, not because they don't want you to succeed, but they just don't want to see the safety net go, or they don't want to see anything harmful come from it, or or anything greater than that. But in your experience, as you've as you've, passionately shared, losing a business is nowhere near what you've been through. So it's nothing compared to that. Yes, you might get a bad credit rating and you might get yourself into debt and you might have to go bankrupt, but at least you tried, and at least you tried to make something of it. And I would say 9 times out of 10, if you're quietly confident about it and you put enough work into it, it will work. You won't be bankrupt. You'll actually be quite well off quite quickly, and all of a sudden, your life changes. And I think I mean, how do you overcome that with your clients? That's probably a good question to ask. We talk about us all the time and we talk about how we do it, but let's talk about how we overcome it with clients.
Yes, I love that. I'm in the middle of this with a client right now who's having huge conflict with her husband over the fact that she's made a decision. And so to leave her job, we're diving into it. But I think one thing that you said is like that you are selfish. And I actually want to redefine that word because we have a negative connotation to it. But anything else that we use the suffix ish on is let's be more of that. Right? It's more of that. So if we think about the word self and ish, it's being more of yourself. When did that become a bad thing? Right? And I think that entrepreneurship, at the end of the day, is learning to trust yourself as opposed to your boss, your teacher, somebody else, your partner, whoever, who act like they know more than you. But it's your life. And if you have a desire to do this, you want to get free and live life on your own terms by owning properties, right? I think my opinion is a lot of the times the reason that people fail is that they don't stick it out long enough, or they don't have support from somebody who's done it, right? So if I'm buying property, which makes me super nervous, but I know is a good investment, there's no way I'm just going to be I think I'll just look on the internet and buy something, right? I'm 100% hiring someone like you to help me. What do I do? How do I shorten the timeline? How do I make make it more likely that I'm going to succeed, right? And I think with my clients, so over 75% of them who've come to me in jobs have quit while we're working together. And so I've seen this process over and over and over and over the past 5.5 years. It's not about having a set number in the bank. It's not about, having a certain number of clients or anything like that. It's about the point at which they trust themselves enough to make that decision. Do they trust themselves enough to go, no matter what, I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to figure it out. There are a million different ways that I could make this successful. Here's the one that I'm working in front of me right now. Have I always figured my life out to this point? Yes. Right? Have I always succeeded in some way, or figured out how to pay my bills? Figured out how to whatever? Yes, because they're still here, right? And they're still connected to me on the internet, So are there ways that they can get resourceful and figure it out, as opposed to sitting in fear and fight or flight and listening to the people around them who are saying they're concerned, trying to keep them safe, but really that's out of fear as well. Right? So are we going to listen to the people who aren't actually doing the thing? My wonderful, amazing grandmother, who was born in the Great Depression here in the US, on a farm without running water. She is what the heck? She knows how to FaceTime and Zoom now, but she's Christine, every time I talk to her, Christine, not everybody can start a business, right? Look at this person, look at this person, look at this person. This isn't for everyone, right? I've been doing this for 5.5 years, right? Yes, I know, Graham, I know. And I'm not trying to help everyone. I'm trying to help people who already know they want to, right? But she's trying to keep me safe. Now, you might run out of people to help at some point. There's only 4.5 billion people online, Christine, right? I mean, God bless her. And I get it. That wasn't her experience. She didn't have these opportunities, right? But if we listen to those voices, which we want to listen to because we love our family, we love our friends, we don't want to lose them, we don't want to be kicked out of the tribe, right? This is primal. But also, there has never been a better time to be alive and want to own your own business. Never, ever, ever. You're freaking bought property in Dubai. Like, what is that? You know?
Yeah, I mean, it's so easy now with the internet to get your message out there and get the brand out there, connect with people. And I think all businesses are pretty much people businesses. You connect with people, you know, and I think most entrepreneurs have built a business through solving a problem. So they had a problem and they needed to solve it, and then they built a business because it also solves problems for other people. It's not about the knowledge. You know, it's not about the knowledge. Everyone can read books. Everyone can, you know, understand the knowledge of it all. It's about solving the problems. And then, yes, you get the knowledge on the way, and that makes you better at solving the problems.
Yeah.
But I find too many people want to get all the knowledge and then don't take any action. And that's even worse than not getting the knowledge. You know, just don't do anything. Just continue doing what you're doing.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, like, God, I can go on Facebook, as I've done in the last couple of weeks with my, you know, deal sourcer in Dubai. And I'm like talking to landlords in Dubai over Facebook. And then I'm saying, right, my guy's going to come and look at your property. You know, it's like, you couldn't do that 20 years ago.
Exactly.
You'd have to go to Dubai and get on the ground and, you know, and start making inquiries. And that just opens up so many doors for so many people. If you've got that vision and if you've got that drive. And I think, the other thing as well about the people giving you advice normally have absolutely zero knowledge in what they're giving advice about.
Exactly.
So, you know, most people say, oh, well, I'm not going to work with that coach or pay that coach because he doesn't know enough. All right. Okay. But then they're going to listen to someone who knows even less. And it's like, for me, I'm just like, where does that work? And I think it comes, as you say, from the fact that it's normally friends and family and close colleagues that are giving them that information. But it's a strange old setup, and I think you've just got to live in your own little bubble. This is what I do. I live in my own bubble. I don't watch the news. I stopped watching the news about 4 years ago. And I don't, you know, people say, well, do you not need to be keeping up with the property market stuff, you know, the crashes, the stocks, all this stuff? No, I'm living in my bubble. I'll take actions based on what I think at that time, based on my gut feeling, and I'll ride with it. And I'll also ride with the consequences if I get it wrong. The news, in my eyes, have never, ever, ever predicted anything right for decades. So, like, why are they going to start now? But so many landlords sat on the fence in 2018 and didn't buy a property because Brexit was apparently going to wipe 30% off the house market. The house market went up 2%. So all those people sat on the sideline because some journalist who has no knowledge in property is more than likely doesn't own any property, is like saying Brexit's going to knock 30% off the house prices because he's got a bit of data. And our life is all about this. And, you know, we're both invested quite heavily in our current path to success. And we're not necessarily getting knowledge. We're just getting clarity every week on what our next best step is for our business. And 9 times out of 10, we solve our own problems in our own head when we're asking the questions. But that's all you need. It's a bouncing board, and it's a support network that you bounce off, and then you build relationships and you engage at a higher level. And that's, for me, is what you get involved in when you join communities, you join tribes, and you want to take it to the higher level. We could probably all figure it out eventually if we just don't do what you said earlier and don't quit. We'll get there eventually, but I don't want eventually. I want now. In fact, as my builders, they often joke with me because I'll give them the keys to a new house and they're like, when do you want this doing? I'm like, well, yesterday. You know? So, like, you know, now they're running jokes. I give them the keys and they're like, you want it done yesterday? I'm like, yep, you got it. You know, let's crack on. And I'm like that with business. You know, I don't want to be, you know, working until 65, 70 and, you know, slogging the guts out. I want to be done in the next few years, and that's that. So to make that happen, you've got to put everything in your toolbox to accelerate those results. And by doing that, you invest in people that have already done it. That's the quickest way to do it.
Exactly. And I think it even a much, much stronger argument in my eyes when you're talking about investing in property, like, because the property investing in property or whatever is so much larger of a potential investment than starting a service-based business like what I do, you know, because if I'm looking at buying a house for $100,000, or $1 million or anywhere in between, like, gosh, it seems like it would make a lot of sense to invest several $1,000s to help me make the most of those hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of pounds, right? And so I think it's like you said, we could get there, of course, but like, we want it now. We're entrepreneurs. We are very future focused. And you said it. I mean, paying to be in the room with people who are also doing it and who can support you when nobody in your family or your life gets it. Like most of my friends are virtual, which is very convenient during a pandemic, you know, but I have a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old, like people who are in a similar stage of life as mine. Most of them are not thinking about growing a 7-figure business. They're like heads down in, parenthood, in the craziness of the season of life, or in their jobs or whatever. And so I look around and I'm like, where are my people? They're online, and that's okay, but if I wasn't, like, if I didn't meet people like you, then I would be like, I'm the only one in the world who's doing this in this way. I shouldn't do it. Right. So sitting around people who are like sharing their wins and going, this worked, this didn't. Hey, let's help each other here. Like, that's so freaking valuable. And it's so important to, in my opinion, I think
it also drives you to do more. Like,
yes.
If you're seeing that there, like, I'm so competitive. Like, I was brought up with very sporting background, played sport at very high levels. And I'm so competitive, and I have been since I was a kid. So my eldest is exactly the same. And, I want to be the best at everything I do. So when I see somebody like posting, I'm like, damn, they are like so far ahead of me right now. Of like, what do I need to do? And it, and it gets you out of bed to do more and drive more. And that's also for me why you should invest in communities. You should get around the right type of people who are striving for the same thing. And I see it in my network. With my clients, they're all. So I have awards that I give for getting to certain levels, and they're all chasing the awards. And and that might seem like a very cliche type of thing, but it's all about the mindset and driving it, and ultimately they want to do it, and they want to be, the first to do it or the next to do it. So they're all pushing, and before they know it, they're like, oh, I've got a property portfolio on the back of just trying to go for that award, and
that's cool.
It all has like these, like it's just a little goal, but then all of a sudden the bigger outcome is they've built a property portfolio behind it. And, and that's, I think you've got to be a bit competitive, and I think you've got to want it deep enough. And I think the ones that don't make it are, and this isn't just property, this is just in general life, are the ones that just, they'll always create an excuse for why they can't do something rather than figure out the problem and solve it.
Yes.
And you might not figure it out the first time. You might not even figure it out the 10th attempt, but as long as you get it at the 11th, then you're going to move forward. And it's, everyone's path's totally different. I've had a few businesses before I stumbled on this one, and it's all different. It just, it takes you in different ways. And I'm sure, like, I'm going in a bit of a different direction now. I'm moving into kind of the development sector now, so my stepping stones of the property business, they tend to go in this way. And then you get onto bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger stuff. And, now I'm stepping into the development world, and, that's exciting. But again, it brings more risk. It brings more problems. It brings more of a financial input. But on the other side of it is a bigger reward. More security long term, and everything else that comes with it. So
what was your very first like investment in property?
Well, it was probably my house that I bought when I was 20. And I became an accidental landlord obviously then I met my now wife, at the time girlfriend, and we decided to move into her flat. So I decided to rent that out. But back then, like, I basically got given that house from the builder. Like, I got a 5% gifted deposit. They put all the carpets and everything in for me. And at the time, so this was like 2007, 2006, maybe. As you know, mortgage companies were just writing checks without even checking anything. So it was very easy and totally different to what it is right now. But I actually was a really bad landlord. And it put me off. It cost me a lot of money to get that house back into order. And I just thought, what's the point in doing this? And so, it wasn't until the last few years that I really started taking this seriously. But when you do take this game seriously and keep it simple, and I think that's the key to most businesses. People think they've got to be complex and, complicated. They're not. Just keep it simple. Focus on the simple tasks that move the needle in terms of the revenue. And the rest of it kind of takes care of itself, because you just can pay people to do that part for you. You don't necessarily have to do it because you've got the revenue coming front end. I remember when I was on a mentorship with Grant Cardone, and everyone kept talking about his lifestyle and how he's like spending loads, and he's got these huge offices and da 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 da. And he was like, I just make more money. I don't worry about my costs. I just worry about making more money. And whereas I think a lot of businesses kind of go, oh, well, if we can save money off the back end, then we don't need to sell as much on the front end. And his attitude was just like, I'll just make more money. We'll just drive more sales. We'll acquire more buildings. We'll sell more products, and that mindset for me is really stuck. Is just, I try to be obviously as efficient as I can on the back end, but I've just hired someone else for my team to find more properties for us. So that's an increase in basic cost. It's an increase in commission, But I know that if I just put the time and effort into working with them, I'll get the result from them, which will benefit the business. So it's not a cost. I don't need to be efficient by saying, oh, well, I'll not get that extra person. I'll just, I'll do this. I'm going to get them and I'll work with them. We'll have KPIs and we'll get the results. And then the business does better. I give them a great job and they'll learn very well. And the whole thing continues to build up and up. And I think having that mindset that was a game changer for me. Having the mindset that employees aren't expensive, they're an investment if you manage them correctly.
Yes.
And when you start to think like that, your world changes, or your business changes. But time and time again, you do see it where, and I've made this mistake as well, where you employ somebody, you give them a laptop, you say, oh, that's your job. And then you just crack on and do what you want to do. And then like 3 weeks later, they've not performed and you're sacking them. And it's like, well, it's no wonder you didn't give them any help. You've not supported them. If they were self-starters that had created their own business.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, that's such a good point. You should write a book about that, Ryan.
I am thinking about writing another book. But the first one was quite, I don't know, it was quite hard to write, but I've had some great reviews from it. So it does kind of spur you on to do another one. So
yeah, same. I'll tell you what. So I wrote a book as well. When I write another one, I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to have somebody interview me who asks great questions. I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to have it transcribed, and then I'm going to give it to an editor to format it. The end.
Yeah.
Because there's such a mental thing. I'm a writer. I've always been a writer, but when it's like, it's a book, then suddenly I'm like staring at the Google Doc cursor blank.
Well, I wrote my last book. So I set a target out so it was January last year. I was like, I'm going to write a book. I wrote about 10 pages and I was like, I hate this. And again, it came down to like, is this serving me? I can be, generating more revenue by finding more properties, so I stopped, and then lockdown happened. And then we came out of lockdown and I was like all about my time. I started like really thinking about my time and how I use it. So I realized when I was at the gym, I would spend about 15-20 minutes sat on a bench staring into space in between my reps. So what I did was I put my book onto Google Docs on my phone, and I thought every time I'm doing a rest to reps, I'm going to write some of my book. And I did that for 4 months solid. Every single time I went to the gym, I was going to the gym 5-6 times a week. So I was doing like 20 minutes a day, 5-6 times a week. And then 4 months later, I had a book with like 40,000 words. So it was just a case of, and it just that for me is like, if you're just consistent in what you do on a daily basis and not think about the result too much, the result will eventually just appear. And bit by bit, you get over it, even if you don't enjoy doing it. And that was the thing. But I have since then thought, if I do a book now, So like any of the PDF guides that I put together or ebooks and stuff like that, I just dictate them into my notes, and then I ask my marketing team to put them together and reword them. And I'll probably do exactly what you're saying there, just something fairly similar. And yeah, so but it's more of I think writing a book, you don't really do it for the money. It's more just I think it's good to tell people about your story and help others. And I'm not expecting to be an Amazon bestseller and earn millions from it. It's just
Totally.
if that book can help inspire a few people, then that's all it's about. And I think nowadays you can publish a book at very minimal cost, so that you're not having to get a book deal and preload 10 grand's worth of books or whatever.
Right.
So
right.
And if that helps people, a bit like the podcasts and stuff,
Yep.
we have some great guests on all the time. And, I constantly get, DMs saying, they love the guest and can we get them back on, or can we get more people like that? Or you've really helped me get over this hurdle and that hurdle. And, and that's what it's for. So, yeah. So what does 2021 hold for you?
Ooh, well, I am pivoting my business to kind of again like move toward my zone of genius, which is really helping people to build their audience and their client base for coaches, for consultants, well, really for anybody who wants to become the go-to person with leveraged strategies instead of just cranking one-to-one all the time, right? So it's like podcast guesting is a specialty of mine. And I teach it, I do it, and I teach it in a way that nobody else is doing. And so I really want to help people like go from best kept secret, where they're good at what they do, but they just need more people in their audience, because if they had more leads, they could sell, right? And also they might not feel like they have the time to do that all one-to-one on Facebook or wherever, Instagram. So helping them learn how to position themselves and get in front of people and deliver a solid, like you said, valuable interview that also attracts people to them. And then selling from that on the back end, rather than feeling like they have to chase down clients, spend a bunch of money on ads, build out a complicated funnel. Like, I want to help people like use their voice and their story to grow their businesses and make a bigger impact. So that's what I'm up to. What about you?
Yeah. Just a quick question on that, and then I'll come on to your question. For my audience, let's assume they're just getting into the property game.
Yeah.
What would your top tips be to help them get their awareness, attract those leads, build their brand?
If they're just but they're building a personal brand around.
I think business now is a personal brand. I think gone are the days of your corporate, Wall Street logo and everyone sits in suits behind the logo. I think now it's a personal brand. I've got my personal brand and I've got my company, the property company. I put my picture onto the property company logo on all my social media and got more engagement just by simply doing that. So it just shows the person behind the logo. Yes. And so I think all businesses now are personal brands.
Yes. Yes.
But yeah, I would say most property businesses will be entrepreneurs running a personal brand.
Yeah, totally. Totally. So what I would say is exactly what you said. Wherever you're going to be most active, like if it's Facebook, if it's Instagram, make sure that your profile reflects that. Your public profile reflects that. Have a decent profile picture, not one of you like partying last night. Have a cover photo that describes what you do. Have a little short bio that says what you do, so that whoever you're interacting with, when they connect with you, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, wherever, pick one place where you have the most people or you're most active, they get what you're up to, right? And it's a credibility factor. And then from there, it's like, I would say, do you want to talk or do you want to write? Like, where do you want to explode your visibility? And I prefer podcast guesting. There are literally twice as many podcasts right now as there were a year ago at this time. So you are never going to run out of places to be on and share your expertise and knowledge, right? And grow the people who want to, who you want to work with, whatever that looks like for you. If you're more of a writer, there's a huge opportunity on places like medium.com. I've had a lot of success, like HuffPo, Thrive Global, some other places. Like the Today Show has a blog as well here in the US. Of course, it's international. Like you can get clients that way as well if you're more of a writer, but pick one like super leverage strategy and then go all in on that. Drive people to your profile. It doesn't matter if you don't have a funnel or anything like that. Connect with them. They will already be way more warmed up to work with you in whatever capacity than if you just ran an ad or if you had to make them see a bunch of your Facebook posts first, because they will have hung out with you in the case of podcast guesting in their car, in their home, wherever, at the gym for like a half hour. And there is no other strategy that can take someone from cold to sold faster because you're not competing with everything else on social media. So do that.
I think that's why video is so powerful as well these days, because people can just instantly connect with the people behind the video. You know, you can get the mannerisms, the way they talk, the language they use, the tribal language that they use. You know, you can quickly connect with people just by video. Whereas for me, I think the written word serves its purpose, and I think it needs to be done. But I think for me, it's all about videos, and I quite often get people who I say all the time, you've got to be documenting your journey. So I'm coming on to kind of what I'm on up to this year. So I've just acquired 2 big developments. I'm going to turn them into hopefully 26 flats. I should find out later today, tomorrow on the plan on that. But I decided I'm going to document this whole thing because it's my first step into big development stuff. So I thought, do you know what? I didn't do it when I started last time in terms of from the very first acquisition. But this one, I'm going to develop it from start to finish. The big one's going to be a 12 to probably 18-month project. It's basically going to be 4 stories, 16 flats, and the building at the minute is, well, it might as well just come down. It's that bad. So it's not, we can't pull it down, I wouldn't imagine, but it's bad. So I just want to document that. So yesterday we went and met the architect there. So I've hired my production crew for the whole time. They're going to come on every visit, and we're going to so yesterday we took 350 photographs there or thereabouts. We did a video, and then we'll start piecing this together and putting it on the YouTube channel and out on social media. Why do I want to do that? One, because I firmly believe that the more I do of that, the more investors I will attract who might be interested in either funding that deal or, well, probably not that deal because I haven't funded, but future deals. And let's be honest, once I've done that, I'm not going to then go, oh, I'm just going to go smaller now and do smaller things. I'm probably going to want to do bigger things. And, you know, and this is why I say all the time, people should be just telling people what you do all the time and showing people what you do, no matter what stage of the process you're at. Because, you know, if you're just trying to buy your first buy-to-let property, then, or even, you know, acquire on a rental arbitrage strategy, whatever, document the journey of that. And then once you've got it, next time, there might be someone who's interested in supporting you on that. And then maybe you can get 5 the next time rather than just the 1. And, you know, but too many people, I think, are so scared of getting on video that they actually don't realize what that's costing them in terms of results for their business and results for their also personal growth, I think. I mean, I hated getting on video when I first started. Like, I watched some of my early YouTube videos back every now and then, normally when I'm drunk and taking the piss out of myself. But it's or more likely my friends are taking the piss out of me. But it's and you're just like, oh my God, like what was I, how did I sound and what did I look like and how bad was that? But, you know, you got to start somewhere and you can't be perfect at the beginning. And if you have that attitude, I think you'll go a long way. Whereas if you constantly overanalyze stuff and try and, oh, I've got to have the perfect ad, I've got to shoot the perfect video, you're never going to get anything out there, and you're definitely not going to get volume of stuff out there. And I think volume at the minute is more important than quality.
Okay, I have a question. Why were you so scared to be on camera?
It wasn't so much scared. I think it wasn't so much scared. I think probably at first it's that whole, my mates are going to take the piss out of me, you know, and, you know, everyone's going to think, what's he doing? So I think that's probably one of the biggest fear factors for most people. Yeah. After I overcame that, I I guess it was, when you watch them back, you realize how much you stutter and chuck in like and you probably still do that now, but not as much. But it's, I think you've just got to, it's just one of those things you just got to get over. Just shoot 10 of them, even if it's to yourself in the mirror.
Yes.
And you'll get used to it, and now you get used to it. It's actually quite funny because I took my photographer down yesterday, and one of the guys who was there, like the architect, did not want to be in the photographs. He like made a few comments. He was pretty much like, I could see he was a bit uncomfortable with it. And I was like, don't worry, I'm not going to put your faces on anything. And then my other mate texted me saying, oh, I've never been in a situation where I feel like I'm getting a paparazzi sort of thing before. Whereas for me, it was just like, I don't even notice like the clicking going on anymore in the background, so it's just one of those, it's reps, isn't it? You do reps of stuff, and the more reps you do, the better you get at stuff. And that's the same, whether it be calling estate agents to try and find properties, calling investors to try and find money, calling landlords to try and do rental agreements. The more of it you do, the better it becomes, the easier it becomes. And normally the better you get at it, so the better results you get at it. Same with AdWords, isn't it? Same with marketing, same with writing copy, everything, you just get better and better. Why does, not so much now, but David Beckham go to training every day of his football career? Because, he needs to get better.
Yeah, exactly. Why do these, I worked at the 2012 London Olympics, and I got to work ringside at basketball, which is really cool because obviously that's a huge sport here. And so I got to sit next to the bench for one of the US games. And this is like Kobe and LeBron and like the Anthony Davis and these absolute legends, right? Kevin Durant. And the coach is this tiny little 60-something white man, okay, who normally coaches university, but he's the coach for the US Olympic team. And I am watching these guys who are at the absolute like peak of everything, physicality, talent. Like, I mean, you want to talk about like testosterone. I was like, I'm sweating just watching the emotion and the competition of these guys, right? And they're listening to this little man who is more than twice their age and less than half their size. And that took them to the gold. And like, I will never forget that, because, oh my gosh, why do we think that we need to figure this all out on our own for free when these 100-something millionaires are being coached by this little university basketball coach, and it's enough to get them to Olympic gold, right? Like, but you know what? Those guys are always learning, right? The people who are at the absolute like best in the world, they're always learning. And so I think it's like a mindset of being willing to try new things, to get out of our own way, to stop just playing it safe. Like, there's this quote that everything that you want is on the other side of your fear. And I think fear is designed to keep us safe, because it did thousands of years ago when we lived in tribes and caves and stuff. But it doesn't really serve most of us who are wanting to get into entrepreneurship or grow our businesses, because it's just keeping us back from taking those actions, putting in those reps. How many reps has LeBron done, right, over the course of his career, right? And he still probably misses more shots than he makes. Like, how do we apply those things to our business and just take like the smallest steps?
Awesome. I think we will wrap up on that fine ending. So powerful what you've just said there. And thank you very much for being on. And I'm sure the listeners are going to love this episode. As always, don't forget to leave a review. And Christine, thank you very much for coming on board.
Thank you for having me. This has been a blast.
No problem.